So, it looks like the latest episode of JJK is causing quite an uproar on social media. Yo, what's good? It's the boy do the views and heavy spoilers for JJK. Episode 7 and 8, you have been warned. Before we dive into the backlash that happened online, I'll just give my overall thoughts and opinions on last week's episode that I missed out. I really like the colors in the fight with Mahito. I really like the design of Muta's robot-like suit. It reminded me of some of those mech suits from Evangelion, and it just reminded me of a lot of older mech anime fight scenes. I really liked how creepy the scene in Tokyo was when the veil covered up all the civilians enjoying their Halloween party and then they were all being blown away. It made me feel really uneasy watching it. I like seeing the main trio all split up and all in different groups. I'm guessing this is setting us up for the events of the Shibuya incident that's gonna happen. I like how Nobara and Maki are teamed up together, and there was this little moment with Nobara picking something out of Maki's shirt. I don't know if she was trying to wipe dirt off her jacket or something, but just little small moments like that made me realize how much Nobara adores Maki and she looks up to her. Does she see her like some sort of older sister, or is there more than meets the eye, if you know what I mean? As we go into the next episode, I love Gojo in some of the scenes of him just walking over people. He's such a prat, but you just love to see it. I like the final act of the episode where Gojo confronts the main villains in the subway. There's a flashback scene where you see Gato and the other villain in a playground talking about their evil schemes and trapping Gojo, and the entire scene is in a playground. Now, while they are there just watching over Mahito just playing around like a child, because we all know that Mahito inside is a little kid, I feel like this scene had a double meaning. We all know that playgrounds are for children and children are innocent and pure and oblivious to their surroundings and what they're doing or thinking. In a way, it kind of correlates to the villains. They don't see anything wrong with what they are doing. In their eyes, they're the innocent ones. They're the ones doing what feels right, and they're oblivious to the chaos and destruction that they are causing. But dude, did he have to hang out in the playground? It's super creepy. But trapping Gojo down in the subway with all the civilians so he can't fully utilize his special technique was a pretty dirty move on the villain's part. Honestly, it's been some time since I last watched season 1, so you honestly forget how despicable these guys are, with Jogo just murdering some innocent civilians. There was one shot of Gojo with his eyes just looking down at Jugo, and he tells Jugo that he's shocked. At first, as the audience, we think that he's shocked that Jugo murdered the civilians, but in reality, he's shocked because Jugo thinks he can defeat him, just adding to the arrogance and cockiness and how much of a prat Gojo is in this moment. But honestly, you love to see it. Even though Gojo is on the side of humanity, and in a way he is seen as a hero, there are moments where I do question Gojo's mindset. What I mean by that is Gojo could have been a bit surprised or saddened that Jugo is just murdering innocent civilians, but he just smiles and he just tells Jugo, can you defeat me? Like, he doesn't seem to care too much about what these cursed spirits are doing to these civilians. As long as he can take him down, that's all that matters. I know Gojo does have a heart and he does care, but there are just certain moments where he can act too much like a prat and be a bit big-headed and cocky, but I suppose that is all part of Gojo's character and who he is. On the outside, he's shown to be this lovable fool, but when things get serious and business needs to be taken care of, then fun and games go out the window and he's super serious, and it's a bit scary sometimes, but it is what it is. Gojo has to do what needs to be done. He has to be the one to do the dirty work. I mean, he is definitely one of the most powerful Jujutsu sorcerers, so a lot of people are counting on him, so sometimes this boy needs to get his hands dirty to achieve what he needs to do. It's very interesting in the story, but with all the praise out of the way, let's talk about the negatives and the things I didn't quite like about this episode. I didn't like the first scene with Mei Mei and her little brother. At first, I thought this was her child, but then it was revealed to be her little brother. Their whole dynamic is just weird. I don't like it. Not a fan of it. I think it's mainly the little brother. He sort of represents that typical anime boy character who's either a super simp for a girl or is very protective over a lady, and any man that gets in his way of that lady, he just acts really aggressive and angry delivery, just that weird relationship he has with her. It's just a bit yucky, but it is anime, it is what it is. He sort of reminded me of Yushiro from Demon Slayer, and I wasn't quite a huge fan of the Itadori and Grasshopper Curse Spirit fight. I just felt like the entire Grasshopper character felt like some sort of filler character. The whole fight was pretty damn goofy and silly, especially how this episode set us up for what is potentially going to be a pretty dark arc. I know the show needs some comedy, but this felt a little bit too much, and I wasn't a fan of the writing in this moment. The animation didn't really bother me, it was just the whole writing and the Grasshopper character. But those are my thoughts of the episode. But in terms of the animation, I thought the art and animation looked pretty good. Not the best, but not the worst. But there is a lot of people online who absolutely hate this episode for one reason and one reason only: the ghosting effect. It was really apparent in the Itadori and Grasshopper Curse Spirit fight, where it looks like when they're clashing with one another, it looks like the frame dims to a lower brightness, and the in-betweens almost have a fuzziness or a blur filter over it, so it doesn't look too sporadic and flickery. I think this is due to the fact that back in the 90s, there was that one episode of Pokemon where some kids got an epileptic seizure watching the episode. They called it Pokemon Shock. So ever since then, whenever there is a sequence of animation where characters are clashing and fighting, there's a lot of bright colors, they tend to dim down the actual sequence. I noticed this a lot in the earlier seasons of My Hero with All Might's fight sequences. I don't think it makes it look bad. I feel like it helps. It doesn't hurt my eyes, but for some people, they do find this to be a bit of a bother. So let's see some of the negative responses towards this episode. What is the dimming and ghosting? It's even worse than last episode. Looks like a video game. That looks so arse. Maybe they are just saving the budget for the later parts of Shibuya. What is going on at MAPPA? Bruh, the first season looked alright. Toei Animation Art episode. Ghosting aside, it feels like such an awkward pacing. At least this is a low priority episode / moment, but 2 episodes in a row is wild. Animation is mediocre enough, the ghosting just adds salt to the wound. All I'm saying, season 1 animation was better. Season 1 would never make this abomination. They called me a madman when I said the quality of production during Hidden Inventory looked compared to season 1. Now look how far it's fallen. They really fumbled the bag when season 1 director left. His fight scenes are next level. Every fight from season 1 were top tier. Weakest episode in the season, and understandably so. The content is not the best either. Timing in the comedic scenes were off. Weak storyboards, limited animation, ghosting, dimming makes it even worse, but next week will be a big one. Ghosting in season 2 has absolutely been dreadful so far. You can't even tell what's happening sometimes. Today's JJK episode wasn't good. Grasshopper Curse fight was poorly edited and storyboard, and the dimming and ghosting didn't help either. The stuff at the end with Gojo looked good, but it wasn't enough to save it. JJK? More like Danny Phantom with all that ghosting, am I right, guys? People literally pay to watch this, and yet it's unwatchable. We are in for a long season. Please do something about the ghosting and dimming. Definitely the worst episode of JJK so far. It's really just been meh, with some good cuts here and there. Storyboard is basic, action especially suffers, clearly low priority, and next episode should be good. Also, screw the ghosting. Was gonna start season 2 today, but what on earth is this? Just stick to One Piece. Never in 100 years I'd have thought my Shibuya anime experience would be ruined by Crunchyroll. Lazy A not negotiating, getting the original non-ghosting and undimmed version from Toei, since the JP law doesn't apply to streaming services at all. So yes, it looks like a lot of people aren't too happy with the ghosting and dimming effect in this episode, but like I said before, I think it's necessary to have that effect. Also, I don't think the animation was as intense as how some of the earlier fights from the season looked, because as some people had mentioned, it's a low priority episode, and I think they're saving their budget for the next episodes coming in the future, so I think people need to just sort of take a chill pill and stop stressing out about this. But I do beg fans not to send any death threats or hate towards the animators at MAPPA or Crunchyroll. It just feels like entitlement to the highest degree. Let's just hope that next week's episode is going to look pretty damn amazing. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys thought of this episode. Do you like the episode? Do you hate it? Do you think MAPPA are dropping the bag with the animation? I thought it looked pretty good. Like this video, subscribe for more anime reactions, reviews, comparisons, breakdowns, rankings, and more. But thank you for watching, and as always, a boy do the view signing out.